I was saying he's holding a PhD in economics from Zhongnan University of Economics and Law in Wuhan, China. He's an instructor and an economic researcher with an interest in international financial flows, particularly the ramification of foreign aid and foreign direct investment in flow into Africa. His research articles have been published in the Journal of International Development, Africa Spectrum, and the Journal of Africa Business. His write-ups have been featured in reputable blogs, including the London School of Economics blog. So if you want to contact our speaker, Dr. Philippe Akofi Atitianti, please, you can check, or you can write the email, the LinkedIn, and there's the website. These are his contacts. So without wasting much time, Dr. Philippe, over to you, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Clements. I must say it's a great pleasure to have this session with you all. So just to be sure, is my audio quite clear? Am I audible? Can you all clearly hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very clear.
So that's great. Thank you.
Yes, I can hear you too.
Nice. All right, so as you may already know, this session is basically to give us a quick look at how to use Zotero in our research work. Zotero is a reference manager. Basically, it allows you to be able to manage your literature in an effective way, and then also more like automates your citation and referencing and anything that has to do with bibliography. So our training today is going to be a hands-on session. I mean, it's going to be practical. So I think you would benefit much more if you have a laptop that you'll be following along, so that we don't end up just more like speaking, but rather get a practical look. It's a very easy software to be able to use. So I believe tonight's session should be enough to get you going with the use of Zotero in your research. Earlier on, I had sent how to install the research. I think at this point, I would quickly share my screen. So give me a minute to quickly share my screen, and then I think we'll be able to proceed. All right, so now, can I get some feedback if you're able to see my screen? Can I get some feedback? Are you able to see my screen?
I can see.
All right, great.
Yes.
I think perhaps maybe you could keep your mic unmuted, so that perhaps if I want some feedback from the audience, I will easily get it from you. All right, so I had sent the link for, what do you call it? Those who intended to join. If you intend to join, you have to download Zotero. So the app can be downloaded from their website. It's an open use software, which means you don't have to pay anything to be able to use it. So this was basically the instruction I sent earlier on. You come to their website over here, zotero.org. And then based on the kind of laptop you are using, if it's a Mac or a Windows or a Linux system, you click download. I'm using a Windows system, so if I should click download, it to give me the option to download the Windows version or the Windows app to unpack and then we'll install. So it should bring you to a page like this. And then to get the actual setup to download and install, you click this option, and then it will download the setup for you, and then you can basically unwrap and install. It's a very simple process. And then after installing, you would also now come over here and then click on the browser connector. Now it is showing Chrome connector because I use the Chrome browser. So perhaps if you're using a different browser, you will see a different. If you want further options for or other options for other kind of browsers, if you should click here, it will give you those other options. And then you can choose the browser you use, and then it should be able to install an extra extension or plugin in your browser. So if you're able to correctly install the software or the Zotero app, now once you're installing, I captured all these things in the instruction I sent out. When you're installing, it will be good for you to close any open word process or word document so that it doesn't interfere with the installation process. So you have to first close all open word documents and then run the app or run the software and it installs. If it installs correctly, you should see the Zotero tab appear in your Word. So if you should open, what do you call it, a new document, you would be able to, give me a minute. You should be able to, you realize that you're able to see my ribbon up there in terms of Microsoft Word, and it shows that Zotero actually installed correctly. So you should have this appearing if your installation ran successfully. Now, because it's a practical session, I don't mind if along the way you have a question, feel free to type it in the chat box. If you think you would be able to better capture your question by unmuting your mic and sharing, just draw my attention that I have a question I want to ask, and then I may pause midway and then be able to address your question so that we don't end up maybe leaving some people too far behind whilst others are catching up, so that we all could at least be on a decent pace and be able to make progress tonight's session. And then if you're able to also successfully install the browser connector, if you should open perhaps a new tab, you should see a Z. Okay, if I realize that if I open a new tab, I'll end up seeing a Z here, which shows that Zotero has actually been successfully installed. Great. So can I get some feedback from maybe the audience if we are all on the same page, if perhaps someone is lagging behind in terms of the installation?
I can see some comment in the chat box. Someone saying not able to install.
So I think you can't connect to Chrome. I see the Zotero software successfully installed, and if you can't connect to Chrome, I don't really know what you mean by I can't connect to Chrome. So perhaps if you could refine your question again. So I'm just giving maybe a minute or two so that we could, because we can't necessarily wait for everyone to get it fixed before we proceed, but I'm just allowing maybe a minute or two for people to configure their system so that we could proceed. All right, so yes, so a minute or two just for people to quickly configure. Perhaps some of them, they didn't get the instruction that was sent out, so a minute or two to get everything set up, and then we can proceed. So I guess at this stage, I will now switch the type of screen share so that I will now go to Zotero, and then we can proceed from there. All right, so now if you successfully installed and opened your Zotero, you should see something like this as an interface. Now you may not necessarily see all these folders here. I'm seeing this here because I've been using it, so I've created a lot of folders. So you should see perhaps something a bit blank like this, with almost nothing here, just some few instructions, and then almost nothing here, because it's a new app you've installed. So basically, this is where we are going to basically start our practical approach. Okay. So this is the other interface you need to be able to use your Zotero effectively to manage your account. Okay. Now the pane to the left basically is where you create your folders and then capture them in your library. Okay. When you install Zotero from the onset, you are allowed to create an account. The advantage of creating an account is it allows you to sync between different devices. So perhaps you use a laptop at home and then you use another system at office, but you don't carry your laptop to school or you don't move the laptop at school to home. You work on different systems at different places. You can create a Zotero account, and then that would help you to sync. But I think that will not be the focus of the session tonight. Tonight, we just basically want to focus on how to use it. Okay, so these folders allows you to basically organize your literature based on however you'd want them to be. Now, I organize my literature based on the kind of project I'm working on. So, for example, you see that this captures the literature on aid and education, aid and poverty, aid governance trust, because my field is about aid and then FDI. So I organize my literature based on the project I'm working on. So if I'm working on aid and education, I'll gather all my resources into a folder called aid and education. Now, these are custom-made folders. Okay, so this is where we capture everything based on the literature you want to hold. So for the purpose of our training, how then do we create a folder? It's very easy. Now, looking here, you realize that here it says new collection. If I should click on new collection, it gives me the opportunity to create a new folder, and perhaps I can give it the name training. And then I click on enter, and then you realize it creates a new folder down here. Okay, so basically it means I've created a new folder, and that is why everything here is basically blank, telling me that my folder doesn't contain any literature. I hope we are together. Can I get some feedback? All right, so great. So that's the basic way to start going in Zotero. You create a folder based on the title or work you are doing, and that is how you get going. So once you create this folder, there are various ways you can import your documents into the folder. There are various ways, and I'll take us through the various ways we are able to import the folder. Now, the next icon you see here is basically your library. So here, library is more like the big mother box that covers all your folder. Okay, so if I should condense it, realize that everything would collapse into the library folder. And then the files I'm seeing here are basically all the documents or all the literature in my folder, okay, in my library. So when I expand it, then I now get to see the various breakdown of my literature based on the arrangement I gave it, okay. So I think now that we have learned how to create a folder, now remember, this is the folder we've created, okay, so it is still empty. And perhaps the first thing you might want to ask is, how do we get documents into...
Hello.
Yes, Brother Kofi, I see. Was it Brother Kofi? I saw your name, Brother Kofi.
Yeah, Brother Kofi, Pius. Yeah, please, can you go over the how to create the folder? Yeah, in the system, like.
All right.
How?
So, okay.
Okay.
So I'll give it one more try. So once you finish installing your app, if you want to create a new folder, there are many ways. One of the simple ways is just to click on this new collection icon. So if I should click on it, it asks you, give it your collection a name. So since I already have training folder, I can name this one training 2. Okay. Once I name it training 2, it pops up here. So this was the first folder we created. This is the second folder I just created. And both of them are empty. Okay, both of them are empty. So the next thing we want to look at is how to import documents. Now, the reason why a software like Zotero is very key to our research is because perhaps you are working on your thesis or you are working on a research paper, and you need to gather your literature. You need to do a particular style of referencing. Zotero helps to automate every process of yours. Now, gone are the days where perhaps you have to write a research paper or do thesis, and then you see students manually typing out their reference list at the end of their work. And when you do that, you realize that when there's a slight change in your work, you would have to now sit and then make the needed changes in your reference list. It would even get worse when perhaps you submit a paper to a journal, and the journal says we request for APA style of citation. So you sat down and you typed all your reference list using APA. But unfortunately, the journal rejected your paper, and then you are trying to send to another journal, and that journal says, we prefer the Chicago style or the MLA style. Now, you realize that it would be a whole lot of work to try to convert from APA style of citation to an MLA style or Chicago style. And that is where an app like Zotero really makes things quite easy. And so I would really entreat us, sometimes the temptation could be, oh, because I started typing manually, let me just keep going in that path and let me be later use. It's that wouldn't be the best of decisions to make. Wherever you are in your research, I would suggest that once you get to know a tool that would boost your productivity, it's better you stop midway and then get to involve yourself in the productivity or get to improve your productivity by using a new tool. So I hope perhaps after this training, some people may be able to use it effectively. So now I want to look at how we can import Zotero documents in our what do you call it, in our folders that we've created. So I already have some pre-opened browsers so that we can save time. So for example, perhaps you go to a journal website. Now this is one of the papers I had published earlier on. So I want to now get this document here, okay, into the Zotero folder. How do I go about it? Now, I believe you already know that sometimes you may have access or you may have subscription to download some papers. At other times, you may not have access. That is not so much of a challenge because even if you don't have access to download the paper, Zotero will still be able to access the information you need to cite the paper or to reference the paper. So anytime you go to almost any website, Zotero will be able to capture something. It doesn't only work on publication website, it basically works on every form of website. Just that the information it will capture varies from website to website. So here I am on a journal website, this is the Africa Spectrum website. And then if you should check up here, you realize that now my Zotero icon has changed to more like a white paper. Now, if I should open a new tab, I realize that this was the actual icon, but now it is actually showing as a different icon when I came to this page. The icon basically here conveys some information to you. If you see a white paper like this, it is telling you that Zotero has access to the referencing information of this paper. If I say referencing information, it means Zotero can tell you the author of the paper, the journal of the paper, the year the paper was published, basically all those referencing information. Okay, so to get this downloaded into my Zotero account or the Zotero folder I created, now you have to make sure that your Zotero app is opened. And then to make it easy, you can keep your folder selected. And then when you come to this browser, if I should click on this icon, you realize that it gives me a pop-up here. And now you see, I see these two icons here. So this one is telling me that Zotero says it can download the metadata, as in the referencing information. And it's also telling me that it can actually also download the PDF of this publication. So by clicking here, it means I'm having access to download two documentation into my folder. Now, this would only work in this way if you have access or if you have subscription to that particular journal and you can download articles, or perhaps the paper is an open access paper. Zotero will be able to download the metadata and then the PDF. So you realize that here it is telling me I am saving it to the training folder. If you want to save it to a different folder, you just click here. Here will show you all your folders that you have created. And then you can just choose the folder that you want to deposit your text in. So I want to deposit it in our training folder. So I just click on training and then that should work fine. So now if I come over to the Zotero app here, you realize that I have the information here. Aid and governance, impact of Chinese aid on evaluation of government performance. And then it shows you the author's name. So if I should click on this drop-down arrow, you realize that I get to have the PDF here. Okay, so this is the metadata. So the metadata captures the reference information. If you look to the right panel of your screen, this is the metadata information. So it's telling you that this is a journal article. Okay, this is a journal article. This is the title of the paper. This is the first author's name. This is the second author's name. This is the abstract. And then this is the journal in which the paper was published. And then the rest follows. Okay, the volume, the issue, the pages of the paper, and then the year. And then this is the DOI, and then all the rest follows. Okay, and all these sessions are fully editable. Perhaps you think perhaps Zotero missed capturing some information and you want to update the information, you can clearly insert text here, and then that will be saved and added to the metadata over here. I hope you're all making progress. Okay, so this is the first way to add literature to your Zotero folder after you've created. Now, recently, Zotero was updated such that you can even view PDFs in your software. So if I should double click on this PDF, Zotero basically open it within the Zotero app, and then I'll be able to read the paper. Okay, so you may not necessarily have to open it in an external PDF viewer, but Zotero has an inbuilt viewer that you can use to open, and it is fully smart. Fully smart means it can access link directly from here. So if I bring my mouse over here, realize that if I should click on this link, it would open it in my browser. Okay, you can highlight, you can edit, as you can see the tools here, highlight text, you can add notes, you can color, you can insert a color. Basically, how you can easily do some minor text and everything, you can still do here. So perhaps maybe you're reading the paper, you saw a section where you may want to highlight, you can just quickly highlight, choose the color, and then that should work well, or insert a color somewhere, and everything should work well. And it can save it this way and then keep it till anytime you want to use, you revisit it. Okay, so that's the first approach to add literature to your folder. Are we all good? I see some messages popping up. Okay, great. So, which means you're all on the same page. All right, so that's one way we can add our papers. Now, you will not be able to have the PDF if the website you visited is, you don't have a subscription, or it's not an open access platform. Now, let me maybe give us other pop-ups that we could receive based on what we see. So now here is SSR, and some of you may know SSR, and it's more like a platform where people can keep their working papers, or people can keep their preprints. So when you come to such a page where it stores preprints or working papers, you realize that the Zotero icon changes to more like a pencil on a white paper. Okay, so if I should click this, Zotero will also tell me what it is saving. So here it is telling me I'm saving this. This is the metadata, but seeing this icon is telling me that this is a preprint or a paper still being worked on, or what we call a working paper. So it can save the metadata of this paper and then save the PDF as well into the training folder. Like I said earlier on, if you don't want to save in the training folder, you can click down and then choose any other folder you want. Okay, and then that should work well. So if I should now come back to my Zotero, I realize that it should be able to pop up here. Perhaps sometimes network, or maybe that's based on the strength of your network, sometimes you may face some delays. So when you're facing some delays, you could easily click on this drop-down arrow and then click on done, and sometimes that may fasten the process based on the strength of your internet. So let's check if it's, yeah, so we still have not got it. Sometimes the internet perhaps the strength. So yeah, sometimes this happens based on the strength of the internet, but we'll proceed. It will come in later. Let's give it one more try. All right, it's still loading. So I think we'll give it some few minutes and then come back to it later. So this is how a working paper would appear. Now, if you go to a blog site, let me view one of the blogs. Yeah, so this is a typical blog site. You realize that on the blog site, the icon now changes, and this is what it's showing now. So once you see this icon, it's basically telling that it can download the information, but the information it can capture is basically more like a blog information. And then it will also save a snapshot, more like a screenshot of the web page that you basically visited. So almost any website that you visit, Zotero will be able to capture something. If it's a book chapter, yeah, there's an example of a book chapter. Okay, so if you look here, you realize it's an open book. Okay, so if I should click on, it will tell me basically what it is able to capture, and it's saying that I'm able to capture this recognition and respect, more like a book chapter and then the PDF. Now, sometimes when the, what do you call it? Sometimes it takes a while before Zotero recognizes that it may not have access to the PDF. So sometimes, I don't know if they fixed the bug yet, but previously, sometimes when you access a subscription-based website, it may show the PDF that it can download, but when you try to download, you realize that the PDF will not be attached to the downloaded files. But I hope it's a bug that they've improved of. So this is the primary way you can use to get your documentation into your folder in Zotero. So realize that the book chapter has downloaded successfully. Yeah, and we even have the text. Okay, so if we should also double click on the text, it should open, and then we'll be able to go through, read, and then do whatever you would want to do. All right, so it will keep opening different tabs until you close them. So I think I would close this and then go back to our training folder. And then we already successfully have this 2 documentation in here, the title and then the name. And then when you see this PDF icon here, it is telling you that this document has a PDF embedded in it. Okay, so, and then perhaps you may want to open the PDF in your own PDF viewer. How do you do that? Now, you just can right-click it this way. Okay, now remember, you can just right-click the PDF and then choose Show Folder. Okay, if I click on Show Folder, it will basically open the folder where the document is stored. And then now I have the opportunity to open it using my default PDF viewer. So perhaps if you don't want reading, or you don't like reading in the Zotero embedded viewer, you can open it in your own viewer, and that works perfectly well. So I use Adobe Reader, and you realize that now it's open in my normal Adobe Reader, where I could have access to do any other thing that I would want on the documentation. Are we good? So I'll close it now. All right, I hope you're all making progress and people are not left too far behind. Can I get some feedback so that we can perhaps maybe look at the next way to add documentation? All right, so we have some few feedbacks. Okay, great. So, okay, good. So please, if you are maybe left behind, feel free to chip in, and then maybe you'll be able to respond to your concern. So this is actually where the original file has been embedded in Zotero, and that's how come we're able to fetch it and then work on it. So that's the primary way you can get your documentation in here. Now, perhaps you may ask, I already have downloaded the PDFs I need onto my laptop. How can I get them into my folder and still get access to all this metadata, though I already have them on my computer? It's not a problem. You can just import your document into Zotero, and Zotero will still be able to download the needed metadata associated with your work. Now, if I say metadata, I'm basically referring to the information associated with the document or literature you added. So I have some downloaded files in my download folder. So now this is a paper. Okay, so it's already on my laptop. Okay, now I can just drag this paper and bring them here into my folder. Okay, and just drop it. Once I drop it, it basically means I am importing it into Zotero. And then Zotero, what Zotero would actually do is it would automatically try to fish out for all the metadata concerning this paper and then embed it in there. So perhaps based on the specs of your computer, it may take a short time, or what do you call it, a longer time. Now what do you call it? Zotero tries its best to gather the resource it can about your paper. So for some PDFs, you may not necessarily get, for some PDFs, you may not even get some metadata, depending on the kind of document you insert in there. Whilst for others, you may be able to get some metadata because Zotero automatically tries to, what do you call it, capture it over there. Now, I can also double click on this paper, and then it will open and then capture. So you realize that this is a working paper. Okay, this is a working paper. And perhaps maybe for a working paper, it may struggle to get sufficient metadata on it. So perhaps let's try to see if I have another paper I could bring, which perhaps is a journal. All right, so let's try for another documentation. All right, so now I've added another paper. So you realize that it is captured over here. And you realize that once I added this paper, automatically Zotero creates this metadata file. So for the working paper, Zotero tried and tried, but couldn't get much metadata. But this is a published article. Okay, so if I should open it, you realize it's a published article. That is why Zotero was able to quickly save and then extract the article information. Yes, so you realize that these are the author's names, and then this is the title of the paper. And then this journal is the Journal of International Development as captured here, published by Willie. So now let's compare the information here to what Zotero was able to automatically capture. So here now, if we click here, the metadata file, you realize that we can compare the information Zotero captured to what we have here. Okay, so here it is telling us that it's a journal article. And then this is the title. This is the first author's name, the surname, and then the first name. Surname, first name. So basically, Zotero captured everything that is needed to cite this paper in our work. All right. Telling us the date this paper was published, okay, the volume and then issue, and then even tells us the journal. So it means if you have already downloaded all your PDFs that you need onto your computer, there is no worry, there's no need to go online and try to download fresh copies into your Zotero. You can just copy and then import them into Zotero, and then it would gather, or it will be able to capture all the needed meta file. As long as they are papers that were published and uploaded on the internet, Zotero will be able to capture some information about it. All right, let me quickly just check this message. It says, I showed my Word document and said that Zotero is not seen. I guess perhaps maybe when you were installing, the Word document was open. So you can uninstall Zotero and then close all open Word documents and then reinstall Zotero again. I think normally that's the main challenge. If you don't see the Zotero tab opening in Word, perhaps you installed it whilst Word was open. So you can try it again and then give us some feedback. All right, so now that's the second way we can get our documentation or our literature into the folder that we have created. Okay, so now remember, everything here is still captured in our training folder. Okay, that is why we see that we are gradually piping up. And still, Zotero, you realize that Zotero couldn't get any information about this one because this paper was actually a working paper. And sometimes when people put working paper on the internet, based on the platform they put it may not come along with metadata. But on other platforms, sometimes it comes along with metadata. Okay, so you just have to know the variation and the differences based on how Zotero gathers its metadata. All right, so these are basically, I think, the two main approaches you would use to import documentation into your Zotero folder. Now, there is another thing I would want us to look at, another way to import. Okay, perhaps you don't have access to a particular website, okay? You don't have access to a particular website, and then maybe a website like, let's use Google Scholar, for example. You see a document, okay, that you want to cite, but perhaps you may not have the access to download that paper, but you still want to cite because maybe you saw a code somewhere with the paper or something of that sort. So you want to cite it, but don't have access to that paper. And maybe you think it's a long process going to the website of the journal that published it to download the paper single-handedly. But you just want to come to one source where you can download a lot of citation or a lot of metadata for your work. You can do that through Google Scholar. So now I just did a quick search of a topic, aid and growth. You can search any topic you want. And then these are some of the various papers that has the keyword aid and growth. Okay, perhaps I'm working on aid and growth. So I want to gather all this metadata and keep them in my Zotero folder, even if I don't have access to the paper, it shouldn't be a problem. So when you're on Google Scholar, you can still get the information. You don't have to necessarily go to the website of the publisher. You can still get the information from Google Scholar, just that you'll not be able to get the PDF associated. So perhaps if I want to get this, the metadata of this paper, it says it's what was published in Progress in Development Studies in 2001. It's a SAGE journal. How can I get the metadata? I can just click on Cite, okay? If I click on Cite, it is telling Google that I basically want to cite this paper. And automatically, if your Zotero connector is working effectively on your browser, you should automatically see this pop up. Okay, so once you see this pop up, you realize that it's telling you the various referencing style. If you want to import it into your Zotero account, now you can click on EndNote. If you click on EndNote, you see that the same process appears here. It is telling us, I am saving it to training. Now here, I can only get the metadata of this paper. So you realize that we are only seeing the white file. We are not seeing the PDF associated with this documentation because we are saving it from a third-party website, which is Google Scholar. Okay, so if I want to get a PDF, it means I would have to now visit the link itself. And then if I have subscription, I can download the paper. Or if I don't have subscription as an open access paper, I can still download it. So now if you realize that when I open my Zotero, the folder, you realize that we have the metadata, that's aid increased growth. Now this is the same paper that we had here. Now you realize here, that's aid increased growth, written by Maurice Oliver, okay? And then that's the same information that has been captured here. That's the author's name, and then that's the paper's title, and then these are the metadata, okay? This is the journal that was published in, this is the year it was published, all right? And you realize that some of the information here are missing. So sometimes, perhaps based on what you want to do, you may want to fish out some information for yourself. Okay, so you realize that here the DOI is missing. Okay, now let's compare this approach to oh, I thought someone was about to speak. Let's compare this approach to deciding to go to the website. So I'll just click on to open it in a new tab, going to the actual website of the journal, and then trying to get the metadata from this site. Okay, so here it shows that I don't have access to download for free this paper. So basically, if Zotero can download anything, it can download only the metadata. So I realize that now Zotero is telling me I can still download this metadata. So let's click on it and then get it to a folder. You realize that it's showing as PDF. It's saying that the PDF is part, but you can see that the PDF is a bit faint. Okay, you see, now it's telling them, no, I can't download. So that is the delay that sometimes Zotero struggles. Okay, sometimes at the initial, it will tell you, I'm checking the PDF, and then later to confirm, no, I can't. So when you see that the PDF is faint, it basically means you don't have access. Zotero cannot download because you are not subscribed to have access to that PDF. So now let's go to our folder again. All right, so now let's compare the two. The one we got from Google Scholar. The first one is what we got from Google Scholar. And then the second one is what we got from the journal website. Okay, so here we realized that the abstract was missing, series title, journal abbreviation, language, DOIs, and all these things were missing. Okay, and it means we would have to populate it ourselves, or we have to fill in the information ourselves. Now, if you compare this to the one we downloaded straight from the publisher's website, you realize that more information is filled. We have the date was published, the volume issue, we have the DOI, we have the ISSN, and then we have the URL. Okay, so based on what you would actually want to do and the kind of information you need, I think you would have to now basically choose, okay, juggle between whether you want to access your information from Google website, Google Scholar or you don't want to access it from the journal's official website. Let's check. I see some chats coming in. So it says instead of transferring a document one by one, could you import a whole folder? Oh yeah, you could. Yeah, you could do a bulk, what do you call it? I think I'll try that. And then it says, is there another way of importing already downloaded PDFs onto Zotero? I think that was what I brought up. So now let's try the bulk one. Okay, so how do you go about it? Okay, so let's try the bulk one. So now there are various ways. Okay, this is IT. So this is a paper. Okay, so I already imported this. Now this is a paper. I'll just click and maybe hold down Control key. You know, when you hold down Control key, it gives you access to do multiple selections. So I hold down Control key and then select maybe a lot more papers. Okay. Yes, as an example. And then once all these are selected, I could just drag and then put them over here, and then it should work well. Just that the more the papers, the longer it will take for Zotero to basically populate all the needed documents and download or fetch all the information concerning the papers you're importing. So you realize that my mouse button says it's still loading. So at this stage, it will all depend on the specifications of your computer, its ability, and that will tell the time it will take for everything to be fully populated. Okay, great. So now it has imported all the documents and it's telling me that it is retrieving the metadata. So it says here PDF metadata retriever. So Zotero will be doing it for each of the files I've imported. So even if there are 100 files or 200 files, just put them there and then Zotero will go through the same process. So if it gives you the tick mark, this green tick mark, which means Zotero successfully downloaded the metadata. If it gives you this red cross, okay, red cross, it means Zotero didn't download the metadata. All right. It means Zotero didn't download the metadata. So perhaps you will have to look out for all the ones that end up appearing as red. So Zotero is saying that finished. Okay, saying finished. And then I can now close it. So now take note of this paper, the Ferdi. Okay, so I can close this. And then when I check Ferdi, realize that indeed, Ferdi doesn't have any metadata on the right side, but all the others actually have. Okay, all the others have. Okay. Now it is arranging them in alphabetical order. That is why you see some of the papers have gone up and then it's appearing this way. So if all your documents are in a big folder, if they are about 150 files or 200, you can just drag all of them in and then that should work well. I hope that helped, Mr. Nick. You know, Nick was my TA in UCC. He says, I mean, if you already labeled a folder training on your PC, could you lift the whole folder and put it in the library? Oh, actually, I've not really tried that, but I think it's something you could try. But I think if you are importing an external folder, you could just basically create a new folder and then import the content of the folder there. Okay, you could just basically create a new folder here and then import the content here. I think that should work well. I've not necessarily tried creating a new folder and then lifting it there. I think that's, I've not tried. So maybe we could give a quick look at that. Perhaps let me move these items into a new folder and then give it the name files and then put the same documentation in there. All right, so we have the same documentation in there. And then if we should lift, so I believe this is what you are trying to ask, right? As in we lift. Now, if we lift and bring it here this way, if you are putting it directly on the folder, it basically means you are putting it in basically what do you call it? Making a copy and then putting it there. So where you position your what do you call it? Your documentation also, or where you position your mouse pointer basically determines how things go. All right, so now lifting it, you realize that what was our feedback. So yeah, so like I said earlier on, you realize that we didn't achieve the desired end of what we want. Okay, so which means Zotero is not able to really, yeah. So I guess the easier option may be to just create a new folder over here and then just import the file. I think that should work decently. So that is how actually I would do, and that is how I've been officially importing the documentation. All right, so Mr. Meg, I hope that at least give you some clarity on what you brought up. All right, so I believe we can make progress now. I'm trying to see if I've not missed any question. Now there is another import function which I'll later bring up. Okay, now when you realize when you come here, come to file, you're able to go to import. Okay, but later I would bring that. I would use this to teach something different, not necessarily importing a document, but importing something different. Okay, so let's reserve the import. But there are other functions here. I just want us to finish with the basic ones, and then I want us also to make judicious use of our time, and then maybe later we'll check the import function before we end. All right. So that was how, I think the last thing we were on was about trying to get citation from, trying to get the reference information from Google Scholar, and then comparing them we got from Google Scholar, the information that we got from the actual website. So you realize that information from the actual website is quite better and much packed or much filled than information we're able to get from the Google Scholar. But it varies from paper to paper. For some papers, you may get almost a fully populated metadata. It depends on the paper. Okay, so let's try one more to see perhaps if we would get a fully populated metadata. So now you could click on EndNote, or you also click on Refman. Refman should also still work for Zotero. Okay, realize that now we have the same response from Zotero. So now it's saying I'm saving in 22. Okay, so let's decide to keep it in 22. And now when we should go to our folder 22, okay, great. Now this is our 22 folder. It saves it, and you realize that here it still misses out on the DOI, but it's telling us that it's published in Journal of Development Economics. All right. So now perhaps you've downloaded the metadata and there's some information you would want to add. Okay, if you know the DOI, you can type it there yourself. Okay, all the information here, you can easily edit them. So it's not a problem. So it means you can still use the Google Scholar to still gather your resources. And then if you have time, you can add the abstract or whatever other documentation you would want. Okay, now, perhaps I add my own custom documentation. Now let's go back to the training folder where we have our files. Perhaps you added your own custom documents, but you want to keep it there, and you also want to develop a metadata so that you can reference it or you cite it in a document. There are various ways you can go about it. Now, if you look up here, okay, you see it says new item. It says new item. So I can click on the new item, and then it's telling me, is it a book that you want to add, a book section, a document, a newspaper report? You can just come to more, and then it gives you a whole list of the various stuffs you can add. Okay, so if it's a thesis you want to add, you can just choose thesis. If it's basically anything, if it's a magazine article, if it's a manuscript that you're working on, if it's a letter, if it's a journal article, you can create any custom document for yourself. Conference paper. So now let's say I want to add my conference paper. So I click on conference paper, and now you realize that it gives me this icon over here. Okay, so now here you see it says conference paper. I can also make any change from here. Okay, and choose any of the titles here. And then a title, I could give it Zotero training. And then now it says, what's the author's last name? All right, I could put my last name there. Now I'm having this pop up because Zotero already has my name in its stored information. Okay, so this is where you add the author name, the surname, and then you can click here and then add the first name. So add Philip. So I've been able to add my name to the custom document I created. Okay, and then if there are two authors or two or more, you can just click on this plus sign, and then to give you the option to create another author's info. You can add another author's info, and then you can go on to add the date and any other documentation you would want. Okay, and then you realize that you would have created the metadata. Now, after creating this metadata, you can now insert your PDF within this metadata. Now, I already have a PDF with that metadata here. I could easily drag this PDF, okay, and then put it on top of the metadata, and you realize that now I've submitted it under the conference paper. So when I click on the drop down, we realize that I am only seeing the Zotero training conference paper. You see now here the icon has changed, saying that this metadata has PDF. So if I should click this drop down arrow, you see I now have the paper. So that is another way you can use to add your own custom paper, such that once you're able to build this for your paper, it means you can easily cite it. Now, the part 2 of this training is how we'll be citing in Word. I just want to quickly round up this session, and then we'll go to Word, and then we'll see how to work in Word. All right, so basically, this is how you can get to custom add your documentation to your own custom created metadata. So now, before we run up with the interface over here, before we move to Word, any question someone may want to pop up, someone may want to bring, before we now move to Word and see how we can be citing or referencing any information we have. Going one quickly, any question? All right, so I don't see any pop-up, so I guess everyone is good to go. So now we will now.
Someone in the chat box was saying can't see the Zotero on Word document.
Yeah, I think earlier on I gave the person an instruction about how to work on that. Okay, so I'm now seeing a question from Daniel Kaiser. So it says, if you change the original name of the article and import into Zotero, can Zotero? Yeah, Zotero can still import. Zotero can still import the actual, what do you call it? Actual info of that paper and still develop the metadata. So the title doesn't matter whether you're given a custom title or not. Zotero, once you import it into Zotero, it can still gather the metadata. Mr. Danny, I hope you are clear on that now. All right. So I guess I have not missed out on any question. Okay, so we'll now switch quickly to Word, and I think that should be a simple process to follow. I just saw it pop up. Oh, okay, great. Thank you. So now let's switch to Word now. All right. So my Word document is opened. Okay, if you correctly installed it, you should see the Zotero tab over here. Okay, you should see the Zotero tab here. So now, I guess most of us are researchers, so there are various types of citation. So now we have in-text citation. Okay, we have in-text citation where you are maybe typing a documentation. This is our first Zotero training. Okay. It's an online workshop. So perhaps you are typing your documentation and then you want to do various forms of in-text citation. Now there is direct citation and then there's an indirect citation. All right. So now let's say you want to do an indirect citation. If we want to do an indirect citation, how do we go about it? We just have to come to add or edit citation. Okay, now remember your Zotero app should still be kept open. Okay, and then I'll just have to click on add or edit citation. And then if it is the first time I am working on that document, or if it's the first time I'm inserting a citation, I should see this pop-up box. Now here it is saying that what? Document preferences. Choose your citation style. So if I want to go with APA 7th edition, I'll just click on this. If I want to go with the 6th edition, I'll just choose this. If I want to go to the Chicago, I'll just choose this. Okay, so you can just comb through and then choose the suitable one based on what you are doing. Now, various universities have their own preferences. Various publishing agencies also have their own preferences. So just go with the one that you have been taxed to. Now, if the one you want isn't listed here, you can just click on Manage Styles. Okay. And then it will give you another box, and then you can just click on Additional Styles, get additional styles, and then you can be able to search for other styles and then import them here. Okay, but most often the common ones are always listed. Okay, so I just click on Cancel, and then we'll try it one more time. So I just click on this, and then let's go with the APA 7th edition. Okay, so I make sure that is selected. Definitely we are using English. I keep this as recommended fields, okay? And then I make sure you tick automatically update citation. Now, when you check this, what do you call it, this box, it basically automates your work. So anytime you maybe take out some reference, or you add some reference, or you make some changes, Zotero automatically keeps updating the reference list. Okay, so it is good to keep it checked. So we'll go this way. And then once we click on OK, now Zotero would bring another elongated box or rectangle or whatever it is. So after clicking OK, now that box came because this is the first time we are inserting a document, we are inserting a citation in this document. So I have this, and here is where you want to put in the identifier. Any identifier for the paper you want to cite. Now it could be the author's name, it could be any keyword in the paper, especially the title. Okay, so now if I type Chinese aid, Zotero will search all the documents in my Chinese, all the documents in my Zotero account. It is not only searching the training account, the training folder. It is searching all the literature I've deposited in my Zotero software. Okay, so you realize that just typing Chinese, it gives me all the documentation that has Chinese as a keyword. Okay, it can be the author's name. Now, since I have my papers there, if I should type Atitianti, you realize that will tell me all the papers that have the name Atitianti over here. Okay, so you can use a keyword, any keyword, the author's name, the title, any keyword. So let's decide to go with this. Now, because I am doing an in-text citation, which is I want to do it in an indirect way. Indirect way basically means I just want to put the author information in a bracket. So that is enough. Once you have it, I can just click on enter, and then automatically Zotero creates this. You realize when I click on it, it automatically highlights it. When it highlights it this way, it means it was automatically inserted by Zotero, and then Zotero already has the information that it can easily populate. Okay. Now, if you want to perhaps add more, or maybe make some changes or perhaps clear, you can basically just come to the add and edit option again, and then type any keyword you want. So I'll just select this paper, type Chinese again, select another paper. Now you can type as many keywords as you want. Okay, so here, if I type all these three things, basically means I'm making an indirect reference to 3 papers. So if I should click on OK, it works well. Okay, you realize that it cites all these 3. Now I have this A, B there because Zotero is telling me that I am citing this particular author 2 of his works published in the same year. So it is referring to the first paper as A and then the second one as B. This is based on the APA referencing style. Okay, so everything there is just automatic. So this is what we refer to as an indirect in-text citation. All right. Now, sometimes you realize that maybe some authors would want to add words like see, for example, or read this paper, or see. Now, don't come and directly type here. When you do that, you are conflicting with Zotero's inbuilt automation system. That's not how you should do it. So don't end up typing anything in there. What you should actually do is you should basically just click on this option, and then you basically just have to click on this drop-down arrow. Okay, when you click on this drop-down arrow, it shows you that this it gives you what you call it, the style. It says keep sources sorted or classic view. Now you can always keep it at the keep sources sorted. It will sort it for you. And then now you can just click on any of the information there, any of the papers there. So if I click on this first one, okay, it is telling me I can add a page number to this citation, in-text citation, or I could prefix it with a word, or I could add a word at the end. I'll talk about this option later. Okay, so if I just want a page number, I'll just add a page number over here. Okay, maybe page 8. If it's not a page number I want to add, but maybe a chapter, okay, I'll just choose chapter. Now, I'll just use chapter, and this will work for a book. Okay, so if it's a book, I'll just choose chapter, and then I can add a chapter. So if I should choose a chapter, okay, you realize I can add a chapter. But this is a journal, so I will just go with the page option. Then I'll choose maybe page 4 or page 7. Now, there are various options. If you want to cite or make reference to a paragraph, you can choose the paragraph option. If you want to make a reference to a figure, you can choose the figure. So it's a long list that you can make. If you want to make reference to a table, you can do that. So maybe you want to make a reference to the page that we took the information from. So I'll just put here page 7. And then if I should click enter, it will tell me, okay, this Adera paper, you are making reference to page 7 of its paper. All right, so make sure you don't manually type anything in there, else it will pop up errors later when you are working with a referencing of bibliography. Now, how about, what do you call it? If maybe you want to add the prefix. Okay, so I'll click here. Prefix means maybe you want to add something like C, for example, these papers. Okay, I'll just type all of them here. Prefix means it will, as you can see the pop-up here, you realize it's giving me a preview of how everything would work. So it is prefixing my citing with this information. See, for example, these papers. I just click on enter, and then it should work well. It types here, see, for example, these papers. So though I've inserted a text here, I did not do that manually, and I can easily generate my bibliography without any problems later on when I want to generate my bibliography. Okay, now the same thing also works for if I want to add a note at the end. Okay, so if I want to add a note at the end, I can just click and then suffix. Okay, this is our training. And then click, and then it adds, this is our training. Okay, so that's how you go with the indirect in-text citation or in-text cite of your document. Now let's look at a direct cite. If I say a direct citation, a direct in-text, something like Atitiante, you know, something, sometimes you see something like Atitiante 2023 finds that maybe aid reduces wealth. Okay, something like this is what we normally refer to as direct in-text cite. You are basically quoting the author's name and saying that this guy is saying this. How do you go about that? Now, the temptation may be to do it as an indirect citing and then clean the name and other stuff and then just keep the number. But when you do that, Zotero will give you errors later when you want to insert your bibliography. So the best way you have to do it is you just have to manually type the author's name. Okay. And then after typing the author's name, instead of adding the 2023 myself, I could just come here, click add or edit citation, and then click or type out the keywords. So I can type Atitiante. And perhaps if I want to cite this paper of Atitiante, I just click on it. And then here it says Atitiante and Isiama. I'll just click on it and choose omit author. And then when I choose omit author, it will tell Zotero that you are trying to do a direct in-text citation. So after clicking on enter, Zotero only keeps the number. And I could just keep the author's name, Atitiante and Isiama, okay, 2023. So you realize when I click on it, it is automatically highlighted. Finds that aid reduces wealth. Okay, so this is the direct form of citation, and then this is the indirect form of in-text citation. Now let's assume you have completed your work, you have compiled your work. Now you want to have your references, okay? So if you want to have your references, you just go to the page you want to insert your references on, and then just click on add or edit bibliography. So if I click here, Zotero automatically cite, okay, or put in the reference list of all the documents or all the papers I've cited. So you realize that I've cited Adera, his first paper. This is another paper of Adera, but almost the same paper, but it's replicated there twice. And then I cited Atitianti's paper, and then Atitianti and Isiama's paper. Okay, so that is basically how you easily automate your work. Now, if I add another paper, whether in text or direct, Zotero will keep up and still update. So now let's add another paper, Chinese aid. We type Chinese aid and add maybe Chinese aid and local political attitude. We click on OK. You realize automatically Zotero has added that paper, the last one, by Chinese aid and local political attitudes. Zotero automatically adds that one. Okay, so it really automates all your bibliography, all your referencing works. And that is why you have to make sure that you are not, what do you call it? You are not manually editing any of the works here. Okay, you're not manually editing any of the things in the bracket, else you may have problems when you are trying to automate the work. Now, we used APA. I see some questions. I'll come to the questions. Now remember we used APA. So perhaps after your document was ready, you sent it to a journal, the journal wanted APA, but perhaps your paper was rejected. And now you are sending it to another journal. The journal said, we want maybe Chicago or MLA. How do you go about it? Now it's very simple. You can just come to the document preferences here. You click document preferences, and then you can just choose. Let's decide to go with the Chicago manual style, 16th edition, and then you just click on OK. And then Zotero automatically update it. So now you see Zotero automatically updates it and uses the Chicago. Now, for the Chicago, according to the Chicago style, you realize that here it's not repeating the author's name, because for the Chicago style of referencing, if you are repeating the same author's paper, if you are repeating the same author, his name in a chronological order, it replaces the name in the second one with a line. So this line basically means that this second paper was written by the same author I have quoted earlier on. So this is the Chicago style. Okay, you can always make changes. If you still want another style, you just have to choose. And then you just select if you want Harvard or whatever style. You click and just choose OK. And Zotero would always automatically automate everything to make it quite easier for you. All right, so let's perhaps look at some few questions that have come in. Oh, so how do you reference? How do you reference using 1, 2, or 3? All right, I have not personally, I don't normally number my referencing, but I think it should be doable, just that I may not be able to, what do you call it, get it from off my head, because it's not something I actually practice. So it's something that perhaps maybe I may later have to check through and then get back. But there definitely should be a way to go through. I don't know if the 1, 2, 3 has to do with a particular citation style. If it has to do with a particular citation style, then I'm sure the numbering would be automated as part of that particular citation style. So I don't know, those who are asking questions, perhaps maybe you can confirm. If it has to do with the particular citation style, then once you identify that style, I believe it should come along with it. So we have a number of questions coming in. Yes, it makes reference to all the saved papers in the library, not just a folder. Okay, so once you are working in Word, it will refer to all the documentation you have, or all the literature you have in your entire Zotero library. It says citing secondary sources is not advised, but how do you reference secondary sources? Yeah, so I think it's always good to what do you call it? Go to the primary source. It's always good to go to your primary source. Now let's look. It says, how about if you want to reference a paper used in another paper which you haven't downloaded? How about if you want to reference a paper used in another paper? I don't think I understand this question. You want to reference a paper used in another, you mean maybe paper A cited paper B, but you have not downloaded it. So I think the easier way is just maybe go online and then get that particular paper. Oh, it's asking the same thing. Okay, so now let's try and add something like this. So maybe we add Chinese 8. So we go with this. And now here, it says we have it. Let me see if I can expand it. So here we have these various options. Let me push this up a bit. So now when we click here, you realize it's telling us that this is C cruciate C etel. And then it is giving us information on this particular paper. Now, if you check the options here, I believe the options here sometimes will be able to, what do you call it, give an extended option into whatever you want to do. So perhaps if I am looking at a book, okay, maybe let me see the Zotero folder, a book that maybe I may have. So let's clear this citation here. So let's first close this and then go back to Zotero, look at the folder and see book chapter we have. All right, so now you realize that, for example, when you look at this book chapter, we have the title, okay, of the book chapter, and then we have the title of the book itself. Okay, so let's take what's the name. So it says lister. Okay, so let's try to cite lister's version. So click on add or edit. Then we click on lister. And then we generate lister's information. Now you realize, look at how it cites it. So you realize that it cites lister as the author of the book chapter, and then it automatically says that in Anderson, JB, okay, edited, The Politics of Inclusion and Empowerment. You understand? So that's how, what do you call it, Zotero actually works it. So a book chapter is more like the automated case of the questions you are asking, because the book chapter, you are quoting one author as a chapter of an overall book. Okay, so it says Letter is the author of this book chapter, and then automatically asks in this author's book. So I think for if you are referring to, what do you call it, referencing or citing someone who has cited someone, this book chapter example gives more like how Zotero basically deals with that. But if you are working or doing that on a particular journal, which means Zotero would only see that journal as a direct source. And so Zotero allows you to, what you call, do that direct source. But you can always make changes to, what they call it, the populated information here. if perhaps you want to do something that Zotero is not able to automatically do for you, you can always make edits here. You're allowed to basically make various editing here to allow it to suit whatever you want it to do. Is that okay? And then I saw some question pop up here. It says you're working on paper A and paper A, and in paper A there is paper B, which you haven't imported in Zotero. How do you cite paper B? So I think in this case, my my advice would be you can basically easily go to, what do you call it, Google Scholar, and then just type, because if that paper has been cited in paper A, it will automatically list it as part of the document it has captured there. And then you can search for that paper B's title and then just add it. So I think that's a quick fix. That's normally what I use. So maybe if this paper was cited in the paper I was reading, I'll just click on cite. And then once I click on cite, Zotero automatically quickly gets it for me using either EndNote or RefMan. And then I'll just save it maybe in any of my folders that I want. And then it says, okay, good, can foreign aid by growth. So if I should come to my training folder, it's here. And now I can basically quickly capture it as part of documentation. So if I should type can foreign aid by growth, I now am able to, what do you call it, get the paper quickly. And then once I insert it, automatically it also captures it, okay? Over here, can foreign aid by growth. Now, definitely, I may not be able to give a perfect answer to all questions because we all work in different research fields. And so maybe some of your questions may even be new to me. So perhaps some of them you may have to maybe try and search online and see if perhaps there are other automated ways to work on them. So it says, what makes Zotero different from other software? Yeah, they are all, what do you call it? They are all reference managers. So you basically have to go with one. Yes, I know that EndNote is not for free. EndNote requires a paid subscription. So if you're a student and maybe you wouldn't want to make any purchases, Zotero or Mendeley may be an option to go. But I prefer Zotero because Zotero is just quite easy to use. Yeah, but I think Mendeley perhaps it's also good because it also helps with literature search. But I found Zotero easy, so I really didn't worry trying to also be using Mendeley at the same time. This I can see Zotero access to everything, computer, web, so on. Yeah, so every website you open, Zotero would be able to capture something. I think I explained earlier on. So if I open a journal website, you see Zotero is telling me this is what I can get. If I open Amazon, a book, I want to buy a book, you see Zotero is telling me I can download the metadata of this book. It says commodities and capabilities. Now, if I should click here, Zotero will try to download some information concerning this book based on what is gathering from this Amazon website. Okay, just that sometimes these websites, it may take a while for Zotero to download. Okay, so it's telling me I'm downloading this book metadata and then also a link to the page. Okay, so if I should go to the website, my Zotero, you see here, it has it. Commodities and capabilities. So Zotero say this is a book, this is the title, this is the author's name, this is the abstract, this is the place it was published, Oxford University are the publishers, this is the year it was released. Okay, so Zotero captures this information even from the Amazon website. And this information are enough for me to cite this book. If I go to YouTube, Zotero can still capture something. Now, you know, I even showed you this blog. Yeah. So you realize if I go to this blog, Zotero is saying I can get this blog. I can get this information into your training folder. If I come to the training folder, it's still not downloaded yet because normally for websites like this, because of the huge media there, sometimes it may take a long time for Zotero to populate everything and download. If you should go to YouTube, maybe let's visit YouTube. Zotero will still tell you what it can and cannot get. Okay, so normally you would have to wait for the full page to finish its load. Okay, so this, it's still loading. So maybe we'll revisit use YouTube. Now let's go to Zotero. Now, let me view all the files in my library. So now you realize that there are different icons. This is telling me that it's a blog. Okay, if you check here, it says this is a blog post. Now, if you see that, realize that this icon is quite different. Now it's telling me that this one is a video recording, and you see it's telling me this is actually a YouTube video. So this is a link to a YouTube video, and so that is why it shows as a camera. Okay, so the icon basically tells you all the information that you would want to know based on the kind of icon. But once you have this white metadata, it basically tells you have enough. Now this icon is saying that this information here is a magazine article. So if I should click here and then copy the web address here, okay, and then come here and then paste the web address, realize that it's taking me actually to an online, what do you call it, a magazine where I can read the information that was stored. Okay, so it tells me this is actually more like a blog or online article, a magazine, a positive approach to economic aid. So Zotero can basically capture almost something from every website you visit. Yeah, so I think that's what you should. So you should, you are the one in control. Okay, so if you don't need any information from there, you just don't have to click because it's not automatic. It only works when you give it a command to. All right. Says what about if I have all my literature review, all the text with references, and then want to use Zotero? I don't know if Thierry joined late, but I showed us how to import all the information you have. Okay, so if you already have the literature on your computer, you can just open Zotero. We did it earlier on. Choose the folder you want to import your document in. This is the folder you want to import in. Just drag and drop. Okay, just drag and drop, and then it should work well. So if I drag and drop this way, Zotero would gather all the information about the document, irrespective of where you save. As long as you're on computer, Zotero will gather the information. Okay, and once you import it there, Zotero will try to get information. You realize that I just imported the PDF, but Zotero has been able to automatically tell me the title, that this paper or this document I am inserting, or I just inserted. The title is actually Driving Inclusive Growth. It's a journal article published by Fambo Huda. And then there's a second author, but it couldn't get the other, what do you call it, information. So if I should open this paper, this is actually the paper. Okay, so now you realize that how, what do you call it, is this. So you realize that here it is telling us that this paper is actually more like a work in progress that has been sent, but because it was sent online, or perhaps it was put online, Zotero is able to get the author's name and then get the abstract. But because it's not a published paper, it's a working paper or someone's research draft, it doesn't have any DOI or any other information. Oh yes, you can have Zotero and Mendeley on the same laptop. It says, what if you have a document that has not been published online? Yeah, Mr. Nick, if the document has not been published online, for example, let's save this our document. Okay, let's save it as a PDF. So we save it as a PDF. Let's save it on our desktop and give it the name Zotero Training. So let's give it the name This Affairs Zotero Training, and then save it as a PDF to preserve its capability. So we save it as a PDF on our desktop. Okay, so let me show you. I'm saving it on our desktop. All right, so we save. Okay, let's assume this is our manuscript that we are actually working on ourselves, but we want to cite it. Okay, maybe it's a working paper, you still want to cite it. So I'll just go to the desktop. Now this is the paper. And then I can just bring it to Zotero, okay, and then in any way, there are various ways to import. Okay, now I want to make sure my folder is open over here. Okay, and then use anywhere I can to just bring it in here. All right, and then I have it here as a PDF. So this is a document. Okay, now Zotero will try, you can even manually try to see if you can get information. If you want to manually try and get information, you can click on retrieve metadata. So if I click retrieve metadata, Zotero will try and search and try to get any information, but it's telling me, no, I can't get any information about this paper. Now, how do I go about it? There are various ways. I showed you one way that you can come here and then create your custom document. Or you can also right-click on the PDF you added. You can right-click and then you can choose create parent item. And then you can click on manual entry. And that gives you the opportunity, you see? So now, when I click on this drop-down arrow, this is the PDF. And then I'm able to create my own metadata. Now it's looking white because it's telling me this is the document. If I should choose, if it's a journal paper or if it's a manuscript, maybe let's give it the name manuscript. You realize that now it changes the icon to something as a work in progress. And then I can add, what's the author's name? It's Atitiante. The first author's name, the author's first name, I add Philip. And then I can add all information here. And then, so let's give it a try, a full try. So we put here Philip. Okay, let's type this is our work. Okay, and then place, let's say we are in China, date 2023. Let's work with this. I think this should be enough. Okay. And now let's go back to our document that we're working on. Remember, we give it the title. This is our first document. So let's click on add or edit. And then type this is our, you see, it shows here, this is our first Zotero training. And it's telling me Atitiante is the author of this paper and it's 2023. So we click on it, click on enter. And then it has cited it over here. And then you realize it has captured this here. That this is the paper that I cited. Okay, so that's how you can create your metadata for your own document. Yes, a report. So if you want a report, you basically have to do the same thing. So here, instead of choosing manuscript, I'll just click drop down here and look for reports. So this is the report. So I click on report. And then the title, now I don't want PDF to be showing, so I would have to clear this one. And then you add report number, if it's report number 1, report type, maybe research training, series title, institution, let's say CCFC. And then once you're done, it's just okay. Now you go back. If you go back, you realize that if I click on refresh, Zotero will try to update the changes I've made. And then you realize that it has automatically make the changes after I click refresh. So this is the same paper, but now you see this affairs Zotero training. It's a research training number 1, CCF, China. Yes, so that is how, what do you call it? You go about it. And then I saw how to cite the book chapter. I think we already did an example of a book chapter. Now, your work would always be easier if you download the right metadata. Now, I showed us an example. This is a book. So when I'm citing this book, it will cite as a book. This is a book chapter. You realize it's an open book. So if I click here, you realize it says here, book section. So once I have this correctly outlined here as a book section, it means Zotero automatically creates the book title, the title of the section, and then also add the title of the book. Okay, and then the author's name. Now look at the difference here. It says author, editor, editor. So this author name here is saying that this lister is the author of this book section, but the main book was edited by Anderson and Sim. So when we came and then inserted a citation over here, you see how it's cited. So this is a citation for the book. Okay, this is how the book was cited. It says Lister 2004, and then it gives the book chapter's title, and then it asks here, in. Okay, in means this chapter is in this book. This is the editor's name. That's why it asks EDS. And then now it asks the book's full title, and then the DOI, and then the publishers. I hope that answers the question that you brought up. I think our time is virtually almost up. And I don't see any questions in there again. Now, we just have some few minutes. I just wanted to show one more tip, but it will depend on the kind of website. If I'm able to quickly get a website that allows us to download a citation. Okay, I think maybe we get it from Willie. So sometimes you go to websites and they give you the opportunity to download the referencing or the metadata as a file. So let's click on tools. Okay, so I think this should work. So maybe you come to a website like Willie, and then it says export citation. You don't want to use this to automatically add. And then maybe you choose on export citation. Zotero may download it sometimes as a file, depending on the kind of website. So you realize that here it says you can download it as a plain text. You can keep it as an IRS, EndNote, BibTeX. What do you call it? You can keep. So now remember we worked with Refman and then EndNote. So maybe if I should click on EndNote, it should give me the opportunity to download. Okay, so when I click on download, it will go to my downloads folder wherever I decide to store it as a file. Most of the files, you should be able to import them. So let's download this as an ENW file and then save it. Okay, and then maybe let's also download it. So realize that it's saved as Pericles, BibTeX. Now let's go to Zotero and see what we can do with this file. So I go to File, and I go to Import. Now Zotero is telling me I can import BibTeX, RIS, Zotero IDF, and etc. Now remember the file we downloaded was EndNote, so we don't yet know if Zotero accepts that extension, but we can always try. So you can go to select the file and then click on Next. So if you click Next, it will now ask you what file do you want to really upload. So I'll go to my downloads. Now this was the file we saved, the citation file we saved. Just click and then choose Open to see if Zotero has that file. Okay, so then just click on Next. And you realize that Zotero has successfully imported it. So you see here, Pericles. It's telling me that this thing is, the information is the impact of Chinese aid on political trust. Okay, but I realized that the information wasn't that perfect. Okay, the information wasn't that perfect. So maybe you can try for maybe another, what do you call it? Maybe you can try for BibTeX to see if it give you a better information. So for sites that perhaps allows you, or maybe you automatically downloaded these citation files already on your computer, you can still import them. So let's try this option. And then after saving it, let's go back to Zotero, choose import. So select the first one, click on Next. And then now it's saying BibTeX. We don't know yet if Zotero accepts this file format. You click Next. And then Zotero will always try it to see what it can import. So we click on Finish. Now, you realize that the BibTeX file format was a better option than EndNote, the other one we downloaded, because here it gathered all the file correctly, effectively. DOI, publishing year, issue, everything. So it means when you're on such sites, you can, the best option is to go with BibTeX, and that would download the actual files in the right order for you. So I guess our time is up. I don't see any questions in our chat box. So which means hopefully we have been able to exhaust people's questions. Yeah, so I think this is a very basic look into Zotero and how you can use it. Definitely what you have captured in this training is enough to get you going for your research. Yeah, this is basically what you do day in, day out if you're going to use Zotero. If there is any advanced thing beyond this, you might not even be using it that often. And so, Mr. Clemens, I think here will be a great time to end the session, unless perhaps there's something else you want me to do, or there's another question. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Philip. I don't know, do you have any question? If you have any question, you can still ask, or any comment or any suggestion. Y a-t-il des questions? Il y a des questions, on peut toutefois poser à notre orateur, peut nous répondre. I think there is no question. No question. I think everything is clear. Thank you so much, Dr. Philip. I really learned a lot. Really learned a lot. So let me just call upon Mr. the President, President Juguel. Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello?
Yeah,
Hello,
we
salut.
send the recording later. We send the link to the recording. We send you the link to the recording. À vous la parole, Président.
Allô? Vous m'écoutez? Vous m'entendez là?
Yes, we can hear.
Oui, Président, on vous attend.
Oh, ok. Ok, merci beaucoup. Je tiens à vous remercier de votre participation. Premièrement, je tiens à remercier l'orateur, Elda Philippe. Many thanks about your availability to take part in this session. I'm grateful to thank you. May the Lord be with you and God bless you. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you so much, my elder. Thank you about my family, Anglophone, English speakers. Thank you for your attending this session. Thank you. I'm grateful about your presence. Thank you so much. So, je remercie également ma famille de votre présence. Que Dieu nous bénisse. Continuons à apprendre. Nous étudions ici dans un environnement anglophone. Nous devons nous habituer et nous devons nous efforcer à apprendre et puis à nous habituer avec cet élan avec les anglophones. Donc, je tiens vraiment à vous remercier de votre présence. Que Dieu nous bénisse. Et puis, demain, nous avons encore une dernière session de cette série de workshops. Et nous continuons à vous inviter, plein de bonnes choses. Mais n'hésitez pas à poser des questions. Et nous continuerons à partager les PPT des orateurs, ainsi de suite. Sinon, je tiens encore à vous remercier de votre soirée et prenez bien soin de vous avec ce froid dans vos villes respectives, dans vos pays respectifs. Que Dieu vous bénisse et continue à nous protéger aux jours à venir. Je tiens à vous remercier. Merci. Je rends la parole à modération. Merci de tout cœur.
Merci. Thank you so much, Mr. the President. And I want once more to thank our speaker, Dr. Philip. We are so grateful. Thank you so much for such wonderful presentation. Really learned a lot. So I want to thank each and every one of you attending this workshop for your availability. May God bless you all. The recording will be the link to the recording will be sent, so maybe you can revise it. You can go through the session again and again, so you can improve on your citation. So I think that's all, and I want to say big thank to the Office of Congolese Community for giving us this opportunity to learn such insightful workshop. So I think that's all for today. So let me just say goodbye and thank you. See you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you another one.
Also, for
Hello. 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 Who are you? Huh? Where are you? Huh?